Hey guys, Kellen here again with Droid Life. We're taking a look today at the second phone release of 2017 for OnePlus, the OnePlus 5T. So not only is this the second phone of the year, this is also the second in the T series, which was first released, or introduced, I should say, with last year's 3 and 3T. But unlike last year, this is actually a significant upgrade over the 5. And so we wanted to highlight some of those big changes because they're exactly what we like to see when you're going from that phone to this phone in such a short amount of time. Let's do this. This is our OnePlus 5T review. To recap, the OnePlus 5T drops in at $499 and $529. At those prices, you get 64 gig of storage and 6 gig RAM, or 120 gig storage and 8 gig RAM. This one here is the spec'd out version. Now, those memory and storage options match the 5, so why the price increase over it, you ask? Well, you've got now a 6-inch AMOLED display with a 2:1 ratio and little bezel up front, which means OnePlus has entered into that modern smartphone design arena. They've also tweaked the rear cameras, doing away with the secondary zoom lens and swapping it out for a special low light camera. Other than those changes, you've still got the Snapdragon 835, 3300 milliamp-hour battery with dash charge, fingerprint reader that is now on the back, headphone jack, alert slider, thin all-metal body, and Android 7.1.1 Nougat under Oxygen OS. It's got all the goods for the most part, though we do still wish there was something like water resistance. Now, talking upgrades for a second, let's touch on this new display experience as well as that new camera, and then we'll sort of try to wrap those into the good stuff from the OnePlus 5. I'm a big fan of this display setup, just like I was with the G6 and Galaxy S8 and Pixel 2 XL. You've got very little bezel surrounding this 1080p AMOLED display that takes up most of the front. So that means nothing but on-screen buttons for the first time. A fingerprint reader that is, yep, on the back, and an overall setup that really allows OnePlus to compete with those other phones I just mentioned. You also get a similar size to the OnePlus 5, even though the display jumped up about a half an inch. In fact, this new 5T is only bigger by a couple of millimeters here and there. When you hold in hand, it feels and looks exactly like the 5, outside of this display, of course. Unlike the Pixel 2 XL's display, this panel isn't doing any weird color shifts, the brightness levels are solid, viewing angles are too, there are a handful of color profiles to choose from, and you even get night and reading modes depending on your lighting situation. I will say the OnePlus hasn't done anything really unique with the software to take advantage of this 18:9 or 2:1 ratio, but that's probably fine. Their software still remains one of the best. So the takeaway of this new display is that OnePlus has now matched its competitors, even if we're still at 1080p and not Quad HD. The experience is what matters, and that's there. The other big change here is the camera, and after being disappointed with the dual cameras from the regular OnePlus 5, I've come away from the 5T feeling much better. You have a 16 megapixel regular shooter at f1.7 next to a 20 megapixel f1.7 shooter that specializes in extreme low light. So again, the secondary zoom lens that you had in the 5 is gone, and this low light guy has replaced it. The main 60 megapixel camera is used for taking your everyday photos, and yes, it includes a portrait mode that actually works pretty well. With the 20 megapixel secondary shooter, OnePlus is attempting to use all of those pixels by merging 4 of them together at a time when in ultra low light situations to try and enhance the photos. It seems to do a solid job if you can tell that it's actually firing up. The camera app remains easy to load through various buttons or gestures. It has simple and familiar layout for getting in and snapping pics, plus there are enough extra goodies like pro and slow motion modes to keep you busy. As for the results, well, you just take a look. To me, this is a camera that is very capable and probably won't let you down often like I felt the 5 did. Is it as good as the Pixel 2 or Note 8 cameras? Well, no, I wouldn't say so, but it's definitely an improvement, and it will give you photo taking confidence when you leave the house, which is sort of how I measure these things at this point. In terms of other changes, again, the fingerprint reader has been moved to the back. It's super quick, just like it was on the 5. It also lets you swipe to access notifications or even long press on it to take pictures when in the camera, which is perfect for them fresh selfies. This is a well done fingerprint reader with the right kinds of added features. And that's pretty much it for the differences between the 5T and the 5. All of those items I consider to be upgrades, so when we talk about the price increase, I think OnePlus probably gave you enough reason there for it. Alright, so we've talked about all the new stuff in the OnePlus 5T, and that leads us into the rest, which is mostly just a bunch of leftovers from the OnePlus 5. But that's actually not a negative thing because the OnePlus 5 did a whole bunch of stuff right. OnePlus is shipping the same clean and fast software experience as one of the best in the business. Battery life is once again impressive, and the extras like headphone jack, alert slider, dash charging, and premium design all add up to a really nice package. I don't want to dive too deeply into the software again because it really is just like the 5 and we already reviewed that. But yeah, you get that clean stock Android with OnePlus's added customizations. So that means icon pack support, gestures all over the place, tweaks that can be made to the navigation buttons, a couple of themes, and even some advanced stuff like a gaming do not disturb mode. Along with all of that, you also get buttery smooth performance. You can jump between apps or scroll slowly through Twitter or go from the camera just after boot. It doesn't seem like this phone ever skips a beat. OnePlus is one of those companies that seems to have really dialed in Android for their phones. For me, OnePlus has been and continues to deliver one of the best versions of Android you'll find. And look, they are even getting better at software updates. While this phone isn't running Oreo yet, I'd be shocked if it wasn't within the next month or so. I mentioned battery life also, and even though the first few days didn't return the best results for me, that has changed since. I've now had multiple days where I pushed into a second day on a single charge. And I'm not using the phone less or more than usual. It's still 4 hours of screen on time, but I'm never worrying about running out of juice. Let's also not forget about dash charge, which will throw juice into this phone faster than just about any other phone's charging system. I hunt out my OnePlus charger even though I always have other chargers laying around because this thing flies. And that's pretty much it though. You know, like you've got the same design, which is solid, yet nothing incredibly special. Like it's clean and matte black and isn't offensive. It's also pretty safe, yet does feel good in the hand, if not a bit slippery. Overall, OnePlus has its 2017 design language locked down and it started with the 5. This kind of just looks like a 5. As for the bad stuff, there isn't much bad here. There's no Verizon support, so keep that in mind. I also mentioned earlier that I'd love some water resistance, and I'm sure others would love an SD card slot and wireless charging. Those things aren't necessarily deal breakers to me, but I get it if they are to you. I'd probably suggest that there are no massive issues with this 5T. So one more time, you've got a phone that looks and acts a lot like the OnePlus 5, except you've got a better, more modern display that is excellent, an improved camera setup, still excellent battery life, still excellent software, a great fingerprint reader, and a price that most of the time is going to be lower than what Samsung's and Google's and LG's phones drop in at. That's a lot of good stuff going on. Feel free to pull that trigger on the OnePlus 5T.